Welcome to the Inspirational Lab podcast. I'm Stephanie Lanier, your host, and I'm here with my good friend, Viktoria Kupka. She is a familiar face for Inspirational Lab fans and for people who are part of Lanier Property Group. And we are here today to talk about hosting a foreign exchange student and being a I don't know why I just said your name. That's so funny. Being a Victoria. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. This is a bumpy start. Sorry, Haley, like this like never happened before. That's
okay. Third time is a lucky charm. So
it will be a lucky charm. All right.
Okay.
Welcome to the Inspirational Lab podcast. I'm Stephanie Lanier, and I am here today with my friend Viktoria Kupka. She is joining us from the Inspiration Lab and from Lanier Property Group, and we are here to talk about being a foreign exchange student and hosting a foreign exchange student. So welcome to the podcast, Viktoria.
Thank you so much for having me, Stephanie. This is obviously a very dear to my heart topic, so I'm glad we get the chance to talk about it a little bit.
Yes, well, I'm excited, and we were brainstorming topics and what we could talk about in the office, and this was one of the things that came up. So for those of you who are listening, Viktoria and I actually work together every day, and so I'm going to let Viktoria introduce herself first and tell you a little bit about her role here at Lanier Property Group and at the Inspirational Lab, and then we're going to jump into our topic.
Yes, I'm happy to. So I joined the Lanier Property Group and Inspiration Lab beginning this year in January. I was a dual degree student at UNCW, and in my last semester, I had to complete a full-time internship, and that's where I ended up here. Now after graduation, I graduated in May, so now I'm on the LPG team full term. I am a real estate here we go. Sorry.
Broker. Yes.
The broker. Yes. And I'm also helping on the admin team, and I'm really happy to be here. And I also used to be a study abroad ambassador at UNCW, which is obviously something I'm really passionate about. And I always wanted to encourage others to maybe consider also studying abroad.
Yes, which is awesome. And for you guys, Viktoria is from Germany. So you're from Bremen, is that right?
Yes. Yes. In the part of Germany, yes.
Yeah, so Viktoria and I have had fun, as have the whole team here, learning all the different cultural things that have been really fun. I don't even know, she can probably remember a lot of the things around the office that we have found funny, like, I don't know, things that we take for granted in America that she's like, I don't understand what that means, or that's sort of crazy. So, yeah. But as you can tell, she has spent a lot of time in America, and that started with her foreign exchange experience in Virginia. And then I had a foreign exchange student when I was in 8th grade from Switzerland. And so we thought we would talk about just what an incredible experience that was, and encourage maybe some of you to think about having and hosting a foreign exchange student, or maybe some of you are listening and your son or your daughter will hear this podcast, and maybe they're going to want to be a foreign exchange student, because it has been an incredible experience for Viktoria and something that's really changed her life. And maybe even studying abroad. I was talking to a friend, actually, you'll find this interesting, Viktoria, and she said the number one regret, or one of, I guess, the top regrets of clients, she works with people who are older, who are retiring, of their whole life, is not studying abroad in college, because they never got that chance or that experience to go and spend time in a foreign country. And so I don't think that's too much of a surprise, because I think a lot of people wanted to do that. But when you were a teenager, or I don't know, when did you first have the idea of coming to study abroad in America? And was it always America for you, or was it like Australia or somewhere else?
No, so it was always America for me. And I hear that regret a lot, actually, because it is a jump in the cold water. It is scary to go abroad, especially when you're at a young age, going on a different continent. You don't know anything. You maybe don't speak the language perfectly. It's very intimidating. So I completely understand where people have this regret of maybe not taking that jump and doing it. So I always really wanted to go to America, and I used to watch High School Musical, the movie. And I thought it was so cool how everything is in America, with the lockers, the high school, the cheerleaders, the football teams. I thought, man, this must be a really great place to be. And then I really fell in love with New York City, and I still love New York City so much to this day. And I thought, 16-year-old me, 15-year-old me, entire America is New York City, where I learned really quickly, this is not actually the truth. It is very different. So Yeah, I just came up with this idea. I saw it on, I think, an advertisement one day that there's a study abroad program. And I think at the dining table one day, I was like, Mom, Dad, I think I want to go to America for a year and just like experience the American way of living. And it didn't shock them at all. They,
Really?
no, no. I mean, we're a very loving and transparent family. And I think when you have a good communication within your family, obviously they knew I liked America. I
Yes.
liked New York City. That was my number one travel destination. And so it wasn't surprising to them that I wanted to do that. But I can tell it's scary for parents too. I mean,
Yeah.
it was when I came to Virginia and attended my high school year, I was 16 years old. And that's a really young age to let your child go abroad on a different continent and essentially live with strangers. I mean, my family didn't know the host parents I ended up with, you know? So yeah, still very grateful they let me do that.
Yeah, when you think about that, I mean, it is such a level of trust, right? To allow your child to go live with someone that you don't know. It's not like they're going to live with friends or family. I mean, it is a
Exactly.
true, I mean, experience. When I think about our foreign exchange student who came to us from Switzerland, I mean, you know, we didn't know her at all. And I think we had seen a picture of her. It was like about this bit, you know, I mean, it was like a tiny little picture. And we read a little bit about her and her family. That was it, you know. I mean, it was not a ton of information, and it wasn't you know, something where, I mean, you know more about someone from Facebook that you're going to do like, you're going to meet for coffee at a real estate conference than you possibly know about a foreign exchange student. And again, it worked out. It's like one of the last great adventures in life in many ways.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's a game of luck too. Like, I
yes.
mean, we went as a group, we started in New York City and then we all kind of spread out in the United States. And so we kept close contact, and there's statistics that every fifth student changes and leaves their host family because it's just not a good match, essentially. So you can have luck, but you can also, you know, maybe not find the right family, and that's okay. But
So I
I
didn't know that. That's so interesting because you and I, you know, we talked a little bit about before we started recording this, but I didn't know that. So I guess
yeah.
you and I have had really lucky experiences,
Oh,
me
yeah.
on the host side and you on the student side. So you get to America and you match with a family in Virginia. So you're not in New York City. And what was that experience like? So you, what part of Virginia were you in?
So I was in Goochland County, which is outside of Richmond. So it's a little more on the countryside, which is something I just, again, 16-year-old me didn't really know what that meant, didn't really know what that was. Even in Germany, I grew up in a city. But they told us very early on that it's very unlikely, almost impossible, that we're going to be placed in Los Angeles, in Miami, in New York City, simply because it's too unsafe. And the likelihood of us having a better experience and making better friends and being safer is more on the countryside. So there were students placed in the desert of Texas, or, you know, like in the desert of Las Vegas, or California. But yeah, it was quite interesting when my host parents picked me up from the airport and we drove to their house and I just saw trees and like fields. I was like, wow, okay, this is really, really nowhere. I mean, it's hard to get around, and you know, there's not going to be a store for a really long time. So that was a unique experience for me coming from a city in Germany. Yeah.
So yeah, like where you live, is it truly like you live in a city, not
Yes.
like out in the
Mhm.
country or that sort of thing? So having to
Yeah.
get in your car and drive everywhere all the time was a big difference.
Yeah, because I was, even 16-year-old me, I was very independent. I had my bike. I could bike everywhere in Germany. I had public transportation that you can use at a very young age. So I essentially never really had to ask my parents to drive me anywhere. And that changed really quickly getting to Goochland County, where my host parents had to drive me to friend's house. And I had to drive, I think it was 45 minutes with the school bus every morning to school. So it was quite the change. With my bike at home, it took me 4 minutes to drive down the road.
Oh, That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I think, when Regula is how you say her name, from
Yeah.
Switzerland arrived in Charlotte, North Carolina, I'm sure that she flew into Charlotte and she was probably like, wow, what a big city, because Charlotte is, and especially at the time, was bigger. And I remember she got off the plane and she had a little tiny nose ring. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, how is my dad going to respond to this? Because my family's like this really country conservative family, in Cabarrus County, North Carolina. And she had a choker on and this cool like jean dress and Doc Martin shoes, which were very popular at the time. And she was just so cool. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, I'm going to have the big sister I always wanted.
Yeah.
And it was so great. She immediately was like horrified by all the trash cans everywhere. She was like, why are there so many trash cans like in every room? And what is this giant trash can in the kitchen? And we were like, they're trash cans. Like, we have a lot of trash, like simple things that we just thought were no big deal. And
Yeah.
one of my first memories of her is like, we had made dinner or finished something and I was throwing away some mac and cheese that we weren't eating. And she was just like so horrified that we weren't like saving some food that was left over. It was like such a huge difference to her. And now, having spent time in Switzerland, and of course, having traveled the world more and grown up, I understand the cultural differences. And having been in Switzerland, where like in an entire house, there's like one tiny trash can, like you just do not create nearly as much trash. I can really appreciate the differences in, us having these giant minivans and getting all of our stuff and storage units and having these huge houses. Like, everything's big in America, which is true. And just
Yeah.
remembering like all those little changes, that you just immediately come up against. And then I remember her saying, in her thick accent, because she speaks Swiss German, but she said, I am fluent in English, but I do not understand anything that y'all are saying, because we had these really thick country accents, So it's
Yeah.
like, hey girl, how are you? Like, welcome to Concord. She was like, what? And we're like, we brought you a sun drop. And she was like, oh, what is this? But I just remember her being like really listening very intently, because she was like, I can speak English, but she was not speaking like redneck, which is what we were speaking, it's like our own
Yeah.
dialect.
Even
Um,
things too. I mean, this is like
yes.
we get taught English in school, probably everywhere in Europe. It's like obviously basic English. We don't get any like slang words or anything like that. So I can completely emphasize what she was feeling, because even today, I mean, I would say I speak English quite well, and I've been doing this for quite some time. But even nowadays, there's going to be like a word popping up. I was like, wait, I've never heard that before. Can somebody explain that to me? And it's just, normal slang word that people use here. And you always keep learning new things as you especially live in this country, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of one even that we had in the office recently. Like, I feel like they come up a lot where you're like, what are y'all talking about? Or
Yeah.
we take one for granted, but there
The
are,
other day when the jumping thing out of the emails you were saying, where you jump from 1 to 2, 3.
oh, hopscotch.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, we were just talking about
Yeah.
hopscotching. And yeah, I mean, there's
A
so
word
many
I've never
different,
heard before.
right. You knew what it was, but you didn't know what we called it here. Yes, exactly. I think it's just, there's so many things that those cross-cultural differences for you, being being so young and coming to America. What do you think was the biggest transformation for you when you left? Like, when you went back home, how did you transform? When, like, if somebody's listening and they're thinking like, I think this would be great for my teenager to hear, or maybe their son or daughter is listening to it, like, what was the big takeaway? Because I mean, it would be so scary and awesome and wonderful, but I mean, it's hard enough to make new friends as a teenager anywhere,
Right.
much less going to a foreign country. I mean, that is so brave, Victoria. It's so crazy that you did this. Like, it's just nuts.
Looking back now, I think it's crazy too.
It's
Yeah.
really crazy. Like, I just imagining you on the first day of school, like you
Yeah.
got your outfit, you're going to Goochland County High School or whatever.
Yeah.
And did you have it? So in your host family though, did you have like a brother or sister that was around your age? Like, was somebody at
Yeah.
least with you?
So the year my host parents were hosting me, they had this amazing idea to host 2 foreign exchange students. So I actually had a Spanish sister.
I did not know this either.
Yeah, so I had a Spanish sister. She was there for the exact same time span as I did. We shared a room, which was by far the most interesting experience. Um, and yeah, I mean, she truly was my sister during that time. And I will say one thing that maybe parents don't like to hear, but regarding your question, what was the biggest impact? I mean, I really did grow up.
Yeah.
I became a lot more independent, which if you really think about it, it just makes sense. I left
Yeah.
home really early. I had host parents, but when I came there, I didn't know who they were. Like I had to create a report, I had to create a relationship with them, and um just learn to trust them and also watch out for myself, because nobody is going to take care of myself like myself or my parents.
Yeah.
And so I learned really quickly that my host parents are loving and amazing people, and they have my best interest in their mind. But I think the biggest thing it did for me is just grow up, learn to be independent, learn to take care of yourself, and then just also experience a different culture. And with my sister being from Spain, I got even another experience by not only experiencing the American culture, but also living with a Spanish sister and sharing a room.
So did they have other children in the family?
No, they don't have kids. They had hosted an exchange student before, and then that year, as I said, they just were okay, it worked great. Let's have two this time. And it was
Oh.
interesting.
That is so interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think that, for me, I don't know if they told us, the company that we worked with, to not have someone the exact same age or not. I mean, I have no idea. I'm not you and I are not gurus on foreign exchange
Yeah.
students or anything. We recommend seeking professional help, but I think for me, I was in 8th grade and Reggie was in 10th, maybe 10th or 11th grade. I think maybe 11th, because she was 16, because we were trying to teach her how to drive.
So she was also 16.
Yeah. So I think you must have to be 16. Maybe it makes sense that you would need to be 16 or 17, something like that. So she was like a junior in high school, when she came, or equivalent to. And so it was good because she was like a big sister to me, but we weren't the exact same age. And I think that was like a positive thing for us, that we weren't just, exactly, because I think it might have felt like I had a person who I had to take along with me everywhere, and it didn't. I mean, she was kind of having a similar experience to me, but different in that, we had a little age gap, and I just thought she was like walked on water, and was like the coolest, person I had ever met.
Yeah.
And she was really into Pearl Jam and like all of this like rock bands. And I was like very into country music. I had no idea like what she was really talking about. I was like, Reba McEntire, George Strait. And she was like, who is that? It was just very funny because her picture of America was not my experience of America at all, like her, because she had seen like film and TV, and she was a
Exactly.
little bit older than me, and she still does not have a driver's license. So she never had to get one because there was just no reason to. So she lives in Bern now. She lived near Zurich before. And to your point, she took public transportation. Her own children who I got to meet, which was really cool this summer when I went there, they hop on public transportation to go wherever they need to, and they are independent so much younger than kids are here in America. Like the idea that a 13 or 14-year-old in her hometown can, hop on the bus or on the tram and go get food or meet up with a friend at a coffee shop is totally normal and would be within the realm of possibility. But here that doesn't work. You can't have a 14-year-old operate a vehicle. And so it's just, when she came to America, she was really alarmed that she had to ask my parents to drive her places because we lived way out in the country. It was a very big step back for her as far as her independence, until she made friends. And then once she had friends, they would drive her all over the place and it was all good. But I think you're right. The American dream when you're a teenager is a car. You must have a car to have independence. It's like the critical to your experience, for sure. So one of the things that I also thought would be helpful for people to hear, and maybe would be key, is what does it feel like to share, like, or I guess what I didn't know is, can you go home? Like, do you ever go home? Or the idea is you spend the whole experience, the holidays, Christmas, like you're here the whole year, right?
Yes. So during my exchange year back then, I was tied to a very strict program. So there were certain requirements that I had to meet in order to be able to like keep staying here. So I have to had a certain grade average and just good behavior overall, because otherwise it was part of the agreement they could have sent me back. part of the agreement was also that it is limited contact to your family, which some people hate, and I get it, but you're just not as outgoing, and you can become really homesick if you constantly talk to your family back in your home country. And that also meant that for the entire year, I was not allowed to see them. So they couldn't even have come to America to visit me, and I couldn't have flown to Germany for like Christmas time. Which for me, I loved the year, and I can say to this date that this was the most amazing year of my entire life. And it didn't bother me as much because I also had the end in sight. I know this was only temporary, so I was going to use my time very wisely and make the best out of it. But I just enjoyed it so much that I simply didn't have time to be homesick at all. I mean, of course, I missed spending time with my family and I missed them, but it was never to the extent where I was crying in bed because I needed to be home. It was truly an amazing experience, and I highly recommend it to everyone. But I do understand, back to the point we had earlier, it can be very intimidating to be going away like Reggie or I did for a whole year. You know, looking out a whole year, 12 months, it seems so long, but when you live it doesn't feel like 12 months. It doesn't feel like a whole year. So yeah, it was just an amazing experience, and I would do it all over again if I could. And I mean, I'm kind of I'm kind of still living it.
Kind of are. That's right.
Yeah,
It's just different.
yeah,
You don't have to share a room with someone,
no,
that you didn't choose. So that's
yeah,
good.
yeah, that's true.
I think, Reggie's parents did come. So I guess in our program, her parents maybe came at spring break, and I don't know if they were like limited to maybe coming near the end. And it
Okay.
was her mom and her sister. I do remember that. But one of the things that, as we think about wrapping up, that you and I were talking about, which is the best part, is you build these lifelong relationships with people
Mhm.
that are just so beautiful. And my niece Haley and I went to Switzerland to visit Reggie this past summer, and Haley was a baby when Reggie lived with us. And so Haley does not really remember Reggie, but Reggie certainly remembers her. And Haley is in her mid-20s now. And it was so fun to be with Reggie and going through her country and eating her amazing cheese and her amazing chocolate and experiencing all the wonderful things of Switzerland, but really getting to see her children and her home and the way that her life has unfolded and just all the ways that we're tied together. And there was a night that we were in a hotel together, and Reggie and Haley and I were FaceTiming my dad, and it made me so emotional because it took me back to this time when I was younger, and I don't know, everything just was much more simple in my life, and we were just laughing about all the things that we did. And it was a very happy year in my life because my family took all these trips, because we were showing Reggie North Carolina and South Carolina and Savannah, Georgia, and Florida. I don't know, we went everywhere because we wanted to show her. Well, we didn't do airplanes, but everywhere that you could drive, essentially, like
Yeah.
Southeastern North Carolina, we took her as many places as we could. And it was such a happy year for us because we were really kind of, I don't know, showing her the best of what America could be. And it was a really beautiful time for us as a family. And so that's another kind of piece of encouragement I have. It's like, you kind of know you have this precious time as a host family with someone to say like, hey, this is America. It's not perfect, but this is our home and this is our place, and we want to show you all these things. And it was so wonderful to reminisce about that. And my dad, he tried to teach her how to drive because we knew that the license would translate. So we have these pictures of her on her hands and knees, and she was trying to learn to drive with remote control cars. He like had made all these different like things on the floor to teach her how to do 4-point turns. And then she tried to learn how to drive with the tractor next, which I don't know if that helped anything. And then she drove like out in the fields, because we had fields behind our house, and then finally on the road. But just all those like things they were fun, wonderful memories. And then to get to be in her country and to see the things that really are home for her, and to see her children, you just can't put a price tag on that. Like all the things in the world you could buy, you can't replicate that kind of bond and that kind of friendship. And I'm so grateful that my parents, who said that I signed them up for it, but obviously that's crazy, they had to agree to it.
Yeah.
that they agreed to that. And it really did. It came from my experience with it. You saw it in a magazine, but I went on these trips when I was in middle school. We had a teacher in middle school who took kids during spring break to Europe, and I got to go on these trips. I basically strong armed everyone in my family to give me money, like literally everyone, because I really wanted to travel. And it was the same company that had this foreign exchange program, which is how we kind of got in the stream of things. And that's how we ended up having a foreign exchange student. And I don't think it dawned on us here at the office that, I mean, I knew you were a foreign exchange student and you knew that I had one until probably like a few weeks ago that we were like, oh, I don't think this is normal that we both
Yeah.
had these experiences in life, but
Yeah.
how special it is and how much we should encourage people to do this because it just enriches your life so much. And as far as like
Yeah.
pretty much a free experience, as far as like there's not some enormous cost,
Yeah.
involved in it, as expensive as travel can be when you think
Yeah.
about traveling the world. This is becoming family to people, and like what a gift,
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think about that when I came here 2016. I mean, that's 7.5 years ago. And I will be driving up to Virginia in a few weeks to see my host parents again, who now have a new exchange student who is from Italy. So it's just like an ongoing cycle, and I've kept that relationship with my host parents for such a long time, and you obviously with Reggie in Switzerland. And I have friends who live in France, who live in other parts of America. And this is something so valuable to have these relationships across the world, and also leave your comfort zone and being able to develop your personality in a way that you couldn't otherwise, maybe staying in your home country. There's certainly nothing wrong with it, but I am a strong believer that leaving your country and just experiencing a different culture makes you either appreciate your culture even more, or also gives you a different perspective on like, how is life being lived somewhere else? What is something there that we could take over, or maybe that's a good approach maybe. So yes, I'm really grateful for the experience I've had. I'm really grateful to be back here in the United States and to be feeding into that relationship with my host parents still. So I fully agree. It's a beautiful experience to have for everyone involved.
It really is. And I think that, when it comes down to it, it's just that human connection. And I'm hoping that someone who's listening to this, it will spark their interest in the program. And we're going to try to put in the notes the at least the program that you were involved in, because it's still around and it's a good program. Reggie and I are so old, we don't even know if what we were part of is still around. There are plenty of programs that you can get involved in. And I think another great thing is just to travel. And we really, you and I have talked about this, but we want to encourage people. So many people have come up to me and said, how did you go to Switzerland? And it's like, I booked a ticket, y'all. Like, you can travel. You just have to make it happen. I think we sit around and we wait for something magical or for something easy or convenient, and traveling is hard work to put it together. It can be expensive. It can be
It is.
daunting. And when you went home over the summer to get to Germany, it like didn't go smoothly and it wasn't easy, but it is
Yeah.
worth it to get out of your comfort zone, to go somewhere new, to have challenges with your flights, with your trips, with your whatever, because it makes you a different person and it helps you see the world in a different way. And it is very important to do that, in my opinion. And I think it is such a gift that you bring back to your family, to yourself as a person. And I know that you and I both feel that way. It's not surprising that we somehow ended up in these life experiences, or that we ended up working together.
Yeah.
You're so young, but wouldn't you agree that it's, I mean, I think even for someone who's so young, it's like you've spent a lot of your resources on travel.
Yeah, and it certainly is true. I mean, it takes a lot of energy. It can take a lot of time and money too. It is an effort to go on that trip. Besides doing a whole exchange here, but just taking that trip to Europe or going somewhere that you've always really wanted to go to. It is certainly, especially now after COVID, I think we can all agree that traveling has become maybe a little more difficult, which is really
Mhm.
sad to watch, because unfortunately I'm dependent on traveling in order to see my family. But in the end, it just teaches you also just new situations. I mean, otherwise you wouldn't have encountered a canceled flight and like worked around it. And that's what I mean by it develops your personality, and it regardless of what age a person is, it makes you more independent and more confident. Just like leaving your comfort zone and just experiencing new challenges in life outside of your home country.
Yes, I think that's the thing. Like when Haley and I thought we weren't going to get back to Mjøren on this night, we were like, if we find a cable car to get back up this mountaintop,
Yeah.
it's going to be incredible, because otherwise we're going to have to climb a Swiss mountain in the middle of the night, and it's not going to be pretty because everyone went to bed in Switzerland at like 8:30. In these small villages, y'all, they just go to bed because they're tired. And look, it doesn't matter. It's high travel season. It's just dark. And they're friendly, sort of, for the most part. Like nobody's mean, but like you don't just go knocking on like a Swiss chalet's like door in the middle of the night. So it was not looking promising, but we figured it out and it was very cool. And then we ended up in the middle of like their local celebration. We're like one of like 10 tourists who were there, and there were 400 other people. And we have these videos of them singing like, I don't know, a song that we'll never hear again because it's their song for their town, for their village. And to get to be a part of that is just so cool and such a wonderful experience. And I think you're right. You learn self-reliance, which is such a powerful thing, to know to trust yourself, to know that you can figure it out. And you started learning that at 16, which is so powerful. And I think that all of these experiences help us figure that out. And when we're host families, when we're foreign exchange students, when we travel, we learn that human spirit and the things that connect us are there, whether we're in Switzerland, Germany, wherever we've traveled. And we need that after the past few years in our world. We need to be remembering that. So I hope that we've inspired and encouraged people to travel, to host people. And I'm so glad that you're on our team and part of my life. And I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your experiences.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was great sharing my experience.
Yes, and maybe people will reach out to you and you can share more.
Please do.
All right. Thank you so
right.
much.
Thank you. Bye.